Hello, on this bumpy 50-point inspection from Japas out of Chicago, Illinois, I have Taiyaki, whatever it is. This was gifted to me from John and Nelly from Georgia Beer Reviews. It is a 10% Imperial Stout that is brewed with red bean paste, vanilla, and lactose. So I never really knew what red bean paste was. John did explain it to me a little bit. I also looked it up just to make sure and refresh. It's basically boiled red beans that they mash down, squeeze down into a paste. They typically add sugar to it. They don't have to. Sometimes it can be back sweetened, made into a dry paste as well, and then oiled up and used as a filler for certain sweets and stuff like that in Chinese and Japanese cuisines and pastries. So it's red beans that have been sweetened, more than likely. So yeah, it's an interesting can, trying to find out who brewed this, because it's not very clear. Lots of stuff in some type of oriental writing, or names anyways. And there's the Nipro Brazilian Women's Brewers on there. I thought this might be that, but I think that they're just shouting them out or something. It says artisanal Japas Cervejaria. So, all right. First time having this beer, obviously. Let's go ahead and open it up and put it through this inspection. Can seemed to have a leak or something in it. It just didn't want to pour correctly out of the top there, so had some drips going on. But the head on this, very tight, frothy, mocha looking head. The color of this Imperial Stout has some nice caramel and amber like coloration down at the very bottom, but pretty damn dark beer. Let's get some aromas. So a bit on the chocolate side, I would say. A little bit roasty toasty in there. It's got a sweetness to the aroma. There's a bit of vanilla. I think that kind of mixes in with that chocolate note, kind of making it sweeter. Couldn't tell you that I'm smelling sweetened red bean paste, but there is kind of a sweetness to this one. So anyways, let's go in for the first swig, so cheers. Yeah, so up front there is this odd sweet character that I have not had really in a stout or any other brew that I can think of. That's probably that red bean paste. It's almost like some type of confectionery sweetness, and then it does kind of dive back down into that stout like flavor notes, getting some roasty toasty mostly on the tail end, a little bit of that chocolate note kind of mid palate, but right up front you get hit with this kind of like confectionery sugar sweetness almost. Body on this one, I would say, is pushing full, if not quite there. It's pretty darn close. Carbonation seems to be about in the medium realm. Slightly drying on the palate with this, probably from the roasty toastiness. Probably have a scam call coming in right now. Yeah, 10% ABV. So you can't really taste it, but this one does drink like a bit of a bigger beer. Probably mostly because of the body wise, and those deeper, darker flavor notes, that roasty toasty, the drying of the palate as well. yeah, it kind of will turn this one into a slower sipper. Definitely leaves you with that kind of almost coffee-like bitterness on the finish with this one, but the initial up front is that sweetness, which is interesting. So it's got to be that red bean paste. So as I go ahead and give it this 50-point inspection, I'll make sure I include that as an other for the scoring. So all right, let's get into it. So as I was sipping on this one, and the scoring portion of it, I did start to get a little bit of a grain note coming up on that finish there with that roasty toastiness. So a little bit of grain quality in the flavor as well. For the appearance, this one's leaving some very nice lacing along the glass. It's kept that nice kind of head. It did have that kind of bit of a darker head. Yeah, it's appropriate for a 10% Imperial Stout. 6 out of 6. The aromatics, yeah, interesting. I mean, good enough. Getting the chocolate. There was that kind of added sweetness that I couldn't really pinpoint as being red bean paste, but there is some type of sweetness in there. Maybe a little bit of that kind of vanilla aroma as well, also being sweet. It's not full of tons of different aromas like you might get out of some Imperial Stouts, where you might get like leather or like a bit of like a darker fruit, stuff like that, or black licorice. But decent enough notes. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. The aromatics. On the flavor, same thing. I mean, it's not like super in depth of a bunch of different flavors. The confectionery kind of sweetness up front was interesting there, which I believe is coming from the red bean paste. The kind of bit of vanilla, a little bit of a hint of chocolate there mid palate as well. With then just it goes into the bit of gets a little bit grainy. Which I'm not a huge fan of grainy most of the time, and then mixing with that kind of roast type flavor that you get out of a good amount of stouts. The darker malts tend to give off kind of a roasty, toasty, coffee-esque type of deal. So I'm going to give the flavor score a 16 out of 19. On the body, like I said, this one was either full body or very close to being a full body beer. 5 out of 5. And for my overall on this one, for not being a barrel aged beer, Imperial Stout, it's got some good flavors going for it. And I mean, yeah, if this thing was barrel aged, then that would be even better. But yeah, for what this stout is, this Imperial Stout is, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. So something that, yeah, I would gladly have again. It's 8 out of 10 for my overall is a pretty standard, good to very good type beer. So for Taiyaki Imperial Stout from the Japas, it's going to get a BuMpY 44 out of 50, which is going to land this as a very good beer. And I want to once again thank John and Ellie for sharing this beer with me. It's interesting. So thank you all for watching. Cheers.